49ers didn't need their quarterback to win their game against Green Bay, which begs the question, if they do need him next week, is Jimmy G ready to be the hero? And speaking of heroes, Dame Lillard goes off, blows past 50, and doesn't look back while the Lakers implode in Boston. Your night in the NBA on the way as we get up with you starting right now. We are jam-packed as we count it down to South Florida, and the Super Bowl is getting ready to go. But we will start with a performance last night. Will you guys stop that? I don't want to have to separate you. Come on, RJ. Let's talk about what Damian Lillard did last night.
Jeez.
Portland hosting the Golden State Warriors. And we're going to pick it up late in the first half with the Blazers down 7. But Dame Lillard showing all kinds of range.
One thing that Damian Lillard said at the end of this game is that every point was needed. And so it wasn't a 60-point fluff game. His team needed every one of these points. You look at this. Down 2, big 3. They were trailing most of this game. Look at him. He knows what time it is. Everyone knows what time it is. It's Dame time.
He had 48 at that juncture. Now here he is late in the going with a step-back 3 with 21 seconds left. He's got 54 points.
Again, that's what I said. Every point was needed. Here they're down 3. A sidestep fadeaway 3 to his spot. That's so impressive.
And to overtime, he sends it with a minute to play in the extra session. The Blazers down by 3. And here he comes. It is once again Damian Lillard working around the defense and knocking it down.
And one thing, even in watching this game, is he was moving the ball. This wasn't just him catching and shooting it every time. He was just hitting the shots that were needed by his team.
Final seconds here. Jordan Poole, no good. Lillard would grab the rebound.
He knew what he was doing. Get those 2 extra free throws.
That's exactly right. They're going to win the game, but he can set the franchise record if he makes them both, and that he does. That is 61 points for Dame Lillard last night as the Blazers hold off the Warriors in overtime, 129-124. Meanwhile, Lakers on the road in Boston. LeBron began the day in Springfield, Mass, watching his son Bronny and Sierra Canyon playing a high school game, and then playing the game last night in Boston. Anthony Davis back against Kemba Walker and company.
Yeah, Anthony Davis was back. He struggled tonight. Like, obviously, you know what he's capable of doing, but they got out to an AO start. Next thing you know, the score was like 16-16. So they got out to a quick start, but that was pretty much the end of the night for the Lakers.
Right, AD would score just 9 on the night. And look at a crazy play here. Kemba Walker, who, by the way, little fact, has never beaten LeBron in his career.
That's not a little fact.
0-28.
That's a big fact.
It is a big fact.
That's a very big fact. So Kemba was happy to get that little monkey off his back.
In 28 meetings, second quarter, Celtics, by 6, and it's Marcus Smart. Look at the pass.
Look, this was just one of those nights. It was the Celtic night. This was an around-the-back pass, and look, good for you, Marcus Smart.
Celtics up by 8 and just continuing to pull away. Here we go the other way. Jason Tatum throwing it down. Celtics a 14-point halftime lead. Now, I want you to see this moment here. Third quarter. Celtics are up 16, and Jaylen Brown is going to get a technical for taunting for dunking on LeBron.
Well, he should get a technical. You can't just dunk on Prince James like that. You can't do that. Don't you know who that is? You went to his basketball camp. You wore his T-shirt. You can't treat him like that.
Look at Danny Ainge. Danny Ainge doesn't even seem to be aware this is going on.
Danny Ainge is like, we could have used you a couple of years ago with the big 3.
Celtics up 25, and then it's more from Kemba. He had 20 points, and he beats LeBron James for the first time in his career. Celtics win big. Lakers, tough night.
I mean, listen, it was just a good old-fashioned bubble, and that's all. That's all. They beat us on all facets of the game, from the outside, the interior. Points off turnovers and offensive rebounds was the main ingredients to this L.
I'm happy I got one at least, before he goes. But yeah, I mean, it's only one in 28. That's it.
Thank you, Kemba.
It's the latest.
I'm on a new team, so I'm 1-0.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, the streak is one for his last one against LeBron. According to Elias, by the way, that 0-28 was the second worst head-to-head mark any player ever had against any other.
And they're in the same conference. So they're playing each other 3 or 4 times on a given year.
Yeah, so let's talk about the Lakers, though. Some games just do feel like they stand out a little bit. You're going to Boston. That feels like kind of a big game based on the history of the rivalry. They're 2 good teams. It's a special day yesterday. What do you make of the Lakers just laying an egg?
This was a refocus game to me for the Lakers, right? LeBron James, as he should. You get an opportunity to see your son play, yes. You should go see every opportunity you can to see your son play, yes. Right? Anthony Davis is just now coming back, so this is his first game back after a couple of games off. But it just looked like they just needed to refocus, right? If you're playing in the postseason, I would not recommend LeBron James going and seeing his kid and throwing off his rhythm. Ultimately, my point is this is just one game. I think the Lakers look is like, okay, we're probably the best team in the league. We're a top 3 team. We have a chance to win a championship. We just need to refocus because teams will be coming after us with their best shot.
And teams are coming after Boston. The Celtics had lost 3 in a row and 6 of their last 8 before a 32-point win last night. What should we make of that? I continue to buy into this team.
Well, I buy into Boston. The one issue that I have with Boston is in order for them to beat a Milwaukee, they're going to need to play like this in a 7-game series, right? They're not going to be able to have 2 guys just play okay and 2 guys play well. They need to be hitting on all cylinders, and that's very hard to do for any team. I think that's hard to do for the Lakers. I think that's hard to do for the Clippers. So in order for them to actually get to the finals or even really compete against Milwaukee, they need to be playing that style of basketball.
Well, you saw the pop from Hembo there. According to our analytics, they have the second best chance of any team to come out of the East behind only Milwaukee. And I buy it. I do. I think if there is a real threat to the Greek Freak in the conference, it is the Celtics.
Yeah, and you look at, I'm not like the way Philly is playing, Joel Embiid with his health, I know it's just a finger, but ultimately they're not playing great basketball right now. They're actually sliding down in the standings, and Boston is a team that's just playing very, very consistent right now, mind you, before these last few games.
No, look, they got the bad stretch, but that feels to me like the team that if and when they put it together, they are the team that could make a run. All right, RJ's here all morning long. Meanwhile, Laura, to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, 12 days away from the Super Bowl, so let's go over some key storylines. According to ESPN's Football Power Index, the Chiefs have a 65% chance to win the game, and FPI has this as the best pregame matchup quality of any game in the last 2 seasons. The 49ers allowed 19.4 points per game during the regular season, an improvement, massive improvement, from the 27.2 they allowed the year before. That improvement, in fact, the largest in the NFL. Patrick Mahomes will go up against that defense. He has 9 passing and rushing touchdowns this postseason alone. That's the most by any player without committing a turnover entering the Super Bowl ever. Here's Andy Reid on his quarterback.
He's great to be around every day because he brings energy every day. I respect that. He's never given it's about me. I've never heard that from him. It's all 100% about the team and how we're doing and what can we do better, where can I help. Buckles down to get the game plan down. I mean, he studies. And for young guys out there, what a great example that is about hard work. He's not the fastest guy in the world, but you see him know when to do that, know when to run, know when to get down, know when to throw it. For a young guy, I mean, it's special. He's a special kid.
I think we can all agree you're not going to stop Patrick Mahomes, but can this 49ers defense at least slow him down, and how?
I believe they can, and it's because of their ability to force pressure up front with just 4 guys. I'm a big proponent of that. I know a lot of people are talking about, well, are you watching Patrick Mahomes? Yes, but in a defensive meeting room, in a week leading up to when you're playing a dynamic player, if you can get 4 guys around the quarterback, that affects them. I don't care who it is. The greatest ones that ever play this game, under pressure, uncomfortable, they're not the same guy. And this too, San Francisco is the #1 blitz team as far as creating pressure and getting sacks in the NFL. This is the plan. Like, we are going to break this game down 100 ways before we get to the Super Bowl. Yeah. The absolute plan is you 4 guys earn these positions in where we drafted you and go figure out how to get around this guy and affect him in a positive way to help our guys on the back end.
But, but the San Francisco 49ers are going to have to change the way they do things and self-scout. 4 just isn't enough. They got to mix it up because they play zone 64% of the time. If you do that against Mahomes and gives him the time in those passing lanes, Dan, you understand when you have 4 guys, you still have 2 open lanes that you can throw through or run through. They're going to have to come with some line stunts, distort his vision, make him buy time and get outside of the pocket and try and set some traps. And you're going to have to do something that's uncharacteristic for you. You're going to have to make sure that you try and light him up and blitz him and sometimes bring 5. And I know what you're saying. He's a smart enough quarterback that can find the hot route, and he's hard to confuse. But you can't allow him to run around and get outside that pocket. You got to set edges.
Well, here's the way I would ask the question to you, Dan Orlovsky. As you break down quarterback play, I know you've been sitting there and just studying film of Patrick Mahomes nonstop. Dominique Foxworth said an interesting thing on the show last week. The kid's been in the league 2 seasons plus. He's never had a bad game. He hasn't played a bad game. So what constitutes containing him? What constitutes putting up a good enough defensive effort against him and them that your team has a chance to win?
It's 4 plays. It's those 4 plays that he has a game where he eludes pressure or moves in the pocket, and then those 4 plays equal 100+ yards. It's the chunk that he gets off of, and it's not necessarily like when you get him in the back of the pocket and it's going to be a 5 or 6 yard loss. Patrick Mahomes doesn't turn it into a 1 or 2 yard gain. He turns it into a 30 or 40 yard gain, and that's what San Francisco needs to be really wary of. That would, to me, that would be like the bad game for Patrick Mahomes. If he doesn't have those 4 kind of back-breaking, game-changing plays where as a defense you sit there and go, man, we just called the perfect play, and our guys executed it perfectly, and we got there, but we didn't. And Mahomes turned it into this massive 40-yard gain. That will be the one thing that will go a long way in determining if San Francisco does a great job defensively or not. The interesting thing for me with this game, this is his greatest challenge. This, in his short 2-year career, is the greatest challenge. This is more difficult than the New England game last year because, to Marcus's point, the front 4. I need people to understand, like, when you can rush a quarterback with front 4, the biggest thing is that forces me to get the ball out of my hands sooner than I want to. And while you're doing that, and I have to get the ball out, I have 7 sets of eyes on me, 7 sets of eyes on the ball. And so the ball is going to be in harm's way more often than not. That's why it's his greatest challenge to perform.
If you look at every one of those plays, there were no edges set. Right, so if you're a pass rush, you have to be disciplined in your pass rush. You have to be able to retrace. So if you get too far up the field, you got to retrace.
3-man rush, okay? Don't do that, and they're not. But to get, I go back to the Denver Broncos playing against
DeMarcus and.
That's the game plan. That's the game plan San Fran needs to go in with. Now, it doesn't matter that that Peyton wasn't. That Cam was trying to operate from the pocket. Cam was the threat to run the football.
Right.
And that's what you have to be concerned with about Pat Mahomes, the extension of plays. If he beats you just standing in the pocket comfortable, you didn't do a good enough job rushing, but you can't allow him, to Dan's point, to make those dynamic plays.
That's the example that we're talking about. It was Cam Newton as the MVP of the league with a 15-1 Carolina team that ran into a defense led by Von Miller and those guys in Denver, and they dominated the game. Can this San Francisco team do the same? And then there's the other quarterback in this Super Bowl matchup, and that is Jimmy Garoppolo, who hasn't really had to do a whole lot in this postseason. As you well know, Sunday against the Packers, he attempted a total of 8 passes, and it seems very unlikely that we'll see a repeat of that in the Super Bowl. And candidly, there's almost no precedent for playoff success without throwing the football hardly at all. Since 1950, only 5 players have thrown 7 or fewer passes in a playoff win, and none of those have come since Bob Greasy in the Super Bowl back in 1973. So it does beg this question. Now, Swagoo, we'll start with you again. If the 49ers, and we're basically guessing on this because there is no evidence to tell you the answer one way or the other. But if this game comes down to San Francisco needs Jimmy Garoppolo to win them the Super Bowl in the 4th quarter, do you think he does it?
I'm about 70% comfortable.
Man, what is that?
Let me explain.
Okay.
Damn it, I just said it. Let me explain. Here's the thing. Everybody goes back to the Saints game as well as I. That was, to me, Jimmy Garoppolo's proving ground that Kyle Shanahan felt comfortable putting him in a situation where he had the duel with Drew Brees and continue to put points up on the board and continue to make plays downfield. And it was play action. The thing that gives me 70% more than anything, though, is not about Jimmy G. It's about Kittle. That's who it's about for me. That's the matchup nightmare that survives in any game. If you double him, Emmanuel Sanders, Debo, a lot of guys around him that can make plays as well. 70%. Here's the 30, G. The 30% is we ain't seen it forever. Yeah. That's the part that gives me pause. And 2, when you talk about dueling with this guy, Patrick Mahomes, that's a different duel than Drew Brees. As much as we love Drew Brees, this is a different duel for him.
I mean, for me, that's why that's the matchup, right?
71%?
Well, I'm about 71% because you talk about George Kittle, right? And George Kittle is one of the best, and he has like 127 QB rating when he's targeting Kittle. But then you look on the other side of that, you got Tyrann Mathieu, who is the #1 cover safety in the league. So that's the matchup, and I think that matchup is going to have to really it's going to factor the most into what teams can be successful, because you can take them away, then that allows you to allocate more of your resources to doubling Debo,
So,
being able to
you
come
guys,
against the man.
you guys don't necessarily trust them to come back.
I need proof.
Don't trust them to come back.
I
don't
wonder.
trust them to-
I wonder what quarterback in the NFL leads the league in passer rating while trailing this season.
Probably Jimmy.
Oh, it's Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah.
That's weird. So we have seen him perform when he's needed to. And we talk about the Saints game, but he's also had the Seahawks game since then. He's also had the Rams game since then. He's also had the Falcons game where he led them to fourth quarter kind of take over those games. Let me ask you, you flew here, right?
Yeah.
Okay, when you got on your plane, have you ever seen that pilot fly you somewhere before?
Don't make this analogy now. Don't give me the airplane pilot analogy.
Right,
Go ahead,
really?
finish it.
Did you see that? Have you ever seen that pilot fly you somewhere before?
No, but we have confidence that he has hours and hours of
Right,
training
exactly.
and thousands of
So does Jimmy Garoppolo in this offense.
All right.
Airplane.
All
So does Jimmy Garoppolo in this
I
offense.
love what you're saying, but
Come on.
I got a rebuttal.
Yeah.
Did Pat Mahomes play for any of those other teams?
No.
It's a different animal.
Did Russell Wilson?
It's different when you're facing a different beast.
Yeah.
I
This
get
is a
that.
different beast.
I get that.
Like,
I know we can sit here and say, like, we haven't seen Jimmy G do it. I get that, but we didn't see Nick Foles do it
What
2 years
set-
ago
so-
either.
So what's your
good.
confidence? What's your confidence level?
Yeah.
You didn't give us a percentage.
71%.
Okay.
But
Well,
this
we the
reminds
same damn thing.
I'm greater than 71%.
Which is the show with the showcase where everyone picks $1 more than the previous
Yeah.
Price is
person?
right. Price is
That's
right.
what you guys are doing to each other. They
Bob
did it in the
Barker.
meeting this morning, and candidly, it's annoying. I'll just say this.
Thank you, G.
Here's the one thing we do know. From the moment Jimmy Garoppolo has gotten to San Francisco, when he plays,
They win.
they're great. When he doesn't, they're awful. I mean, just candidly,
23 and
awful.
5, yeah.
So it's very difficult to sort of diminish that.
How many times have they played the damn Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes?
Patrick, but
None.
here's the thing. We don't know if Mahomes can do it either.
Ooh.
We'll wait and see.
So disrespectful.
We haven't seen it.
So disrespectful. You just told me he's the greatest quarterback ever.
Let's
But we
move
haven't
on.
seen
We
it.
rolled that tape.
He just said
We
it.
haven't seen it, though, to your guys' point. You guys say we haven't seen it out of Jimmy G. We haven't seen it out of Mahomes either.
Man, he threw 8
And I love him.
passes. Patrick Mahomes has never played a game
use that
throwing
argument.
8
You
passes.
ever met your Uber driver
Dan
before?
is now dying on the Jimmy G hill. The fallout from the Astros
We don't
cheating
know if
scandal
Mahomes can do it.
continues. And this past weekend at FanFest, the players were made available to the media for the first time since the sanctions were imposed. Jose Altuve was quick to deny any of the rumored use of the buzzer to steal signs. Take a listen to these guys.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. MLB did their investigation. They didn't find anything.
The commissioner and MLB did their report. The Astros cooperated with the report, and they made their decisions, and it's time to move forward.
Believe me, in the end of the year, everything will be fine. We're going to be in the World Series again. People don't believe it. We will.
So Arbuster Olney reporting that executives were less than pleased with Astros player comments over the weekend. Here's his tweet. Said there's a ton of surprise around the game about how the Astros players answered those questions over the weekend. Rival officials thought the players would have been well served by at least some expressions of regret, contrition. So we now bring in our Buster Olney. And Buster, what can you tell us about the reaction of front offices around baseball to the Astros comments over the weekend?
It was absolute shock, Laura, that the answers weren't different from the Astros, from Alex Bregman and Jose Altuve. Folks with other teams are saying, why wasn't there more contrition? Why wasn't there some expression of regret? And they wonder what the Astros are going to say going forward, because you know on the first day of spring training, knuckleheads like me are going to descend upon the Astros camp, and these questions will continue, because it's not only about speaking to fans, it's about speaking to people with other teams who are really mad, feeling like that the Astros cheating came directly at the expense of their peers.
Yeah, you're the smartest knucklehead I know, by the way. But what can we expect from these opposing teams and how they may deal with the Astros when they face them this season?
You remember when Alex Rodriguez came back from his suspension, how much anger there was for some other players. And there was that moment in Fenway Park when Ryan Dempster of the Red Sox repeatedly threw fastballs at Alex, trying to send a message. I think the same thing is going to happen this year, and that's reflected in tweets sent out by people like the Indians' Mike Clevenger. During the course of the year, I do think in certain situations you will see opposing pitchers throw fastballs at the Astros hitters to send them the message that they're really unhappy with how this played out and how the Astros cheated.
Yeah, the problem with that is if they hit them, then the Astros will be on base once again, so it could work in their favor. Either way, thanks so much, Buster Olney, for joining us. The latest on the Astros cheating scandal.
We are just getting started on Get Up this morning. Is Tom Brady about to pull a LeBron and head to Los Angeles? Is that really the best fit for him, and what are the reasons? There's a lot to explore there, and we will. Plus, James Harden's historically bad night for the Rockets. Houston has a problem. Is it fixable? Those are the questions. We've got the answers. Get Up on ESPN.